The following content is sponsored and does not necessarily reflect the views of WATD Radio. Now, Paul Ponders on 95.9 WATD. Be a part of the show. Call or text 781-837-4900. Now, here's your host, Paul Solano.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome and thanks for listening to Paul Ponders on WATD, presented by Northeastern Fence and Supply Corporation of Saugus, where they have fences for your kids, dogs, and ugly neighbors. My name is Paul Solano of the PS and All Marketing Group. This is season number 2, show number 17, and it is happening right now. I am excited to bring you another great season with my network of very knowledgeable contributors. We will continue to keep it real, hot and timely, South Shore and Cape and the Islands based, North Shore reference, but definitely full of Paul pondering thoughts. And as you probably already know, I also wear another hat as general manager of Pearl Street Station Restaurant in Malden. And a huge shout out to Chef Felipe Fitzpatrick and his culinary team. Chef Felipe is a loyal listener through the Odyssey app. So hello to Chef Felipe. And as always, we have lots of activity going on today at Pearl Street Station with a function and umpteen party PM pickups because of the Final Four watch parties and are being closed tomorrow on Easter. I know I always say it, but it is true. As Malden's longest running restaurant of 40 years, we have incredible staying power in the greater Boston area and the North Shore. Please venture over the Zakin Bridge, or as my daughters say, the Godforsaken Bridge, and visit us. Chef Felipe, I must say that the creation of the Bruins black and gold flatbread you came up with is absolutely exceptional. It's only available during Bruins live action, not Bruins in 2, but it's really a winner. Those black olives, those banana peppers on the sheet of ice, on the cheese, on the flatbread. Nice job. Well done. And of course, our friends over at Miller Coors are in fact loving that as well, and we thank them for the promotional support. So that's during Bruins live action. Hopefully we'll be making those flatbreads well into the Stanley Cup playoffs. Now a huge shout out to my team of Chef Felipe, Chef Joaquin, Pizziola Moose, John, Nicole, and Don for holding down the fort on this very busy day. And as I stated earlier, it is season number 2, show number 17, and it is an absolute honor and pleasure to be on WATD in the slot of The Boiling Point with Arthur Boyle. Arthur is my executive consultant of the Paul Ponders radio show, and Arthur is out there adding to our list of sponsors and seasonal sponsors. So shout out to any potential Cape restaurants and businesses that will be joining us. And I just had a nice chat in the hallway with Kevin Tachi. If you haven't heard Kevin's show on Monday evenings, it's a great show. And Kevin is in the Abington area. We're talking about the South Shore. And Kevin does a great job and just talking about all the various businesses in the area. So if you have a chance, I'm sure everyone listening listens to Kevin's show on Monday evenings. But with us behind the glass is Tim behind the glass. Oh, Tim is getting our guests on the line, but we'll tune in with Tim very shortly. But I just wanted to, again, thank all of our sponsors for really just helping us out and supporting us. And it's really so hard to believe. Oh, I hear a race car.
Yeah, here I am, Paul. Hi.
Yes, how are you? I know you're on the other line getting our next guest.
Yes.
But that race car sound is wonderful.
Yes,
so
it is.
What's happening this week?
Well, it's an abbreviated NASCAR weekend. I think the ARCA Menard Series is on right now, but no Cup race tomorrow. They get time. The drivers get to spend time with their families, so that's really nice to.
As well, they should.
Yeah, absolutely. Last night we had the truck race, or yesterday afternoon actually. It was Heim time again. Corey Heim got it done in Rockingham, and at 3:30 this afternoon is the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series.
O'Reilly.
Yes.
Do we hear that jingle?
Later.
Yeah. Let's not say we did, as I tell my daughters. But I love listening to you when you're when you're on Wednesday nights, you're producing the show Miles on Motorsports.
Yeah. Did you happen to hear this week's show?
I heard parts of it,
okay.
Various parts. I don't think Miles was there. I think there was a Brendan. It was
Ben Bennett and
Bennett,
the dangerous one, Paul Scally. He was in the driver's seat. Ben was assisting that, but he always does. And it's nice to get a little different flavor sometimes. I mean, Miles is great, and so is Jim Flores. But to just get Ben and Paul together, it's a different vibe. They have a good rhythm between them, and a little different, talking more about local driving instead of the national scene all the time.
I did notice that, and then I had to leave the car, but then I got back into the car, and they were still on. And, very astute individuals.
Yes. Yeah,
absolutely.
Paul's a lot of fun. They're all a lot of fun, but Paul has some good stories and stuff because his son is aspiring to be a driver too. We call him PS4. I think he's Paul Scally the fourth. I'm not sure. But it was a good time.
That's awesome. And your sartorial splendor?
Yeah, I got Junior on today because my pick this week was one of his drivers. He's got a great operation, JR Motorsports. I think he has 4 or 5 cars in the O'Reilly Auto Parts series, and one of my pick, number 8, Sammy Smith, with Pilot Flying School, I think, is the main sponsor. But good luck to all of his teams today.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah,
and he also has a great podcast, Dirty Mo Media. You can find it on all your favorite platforms.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Well, Tim, as always, you do a fabulous job. It's really great just collaborating with you, and just keep up the great work, my friend.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, as I was saying before Tim raced in on the auto, I just want to thank all of our sponsors, and it really is just so hard to believe that this is season number 2, and this is episode number 69, and it really is an honor and pleasure to be here with such esteemed colleagues, team members, and again, thank you to Mr. Perry and Rob Hackala and Arthur Boyle, for introducing me to this wonderful slot of Paul Ponders and all. And one of the features that we usually have with this show is, in fact, the Pod Pro Techie Toolbox segment with Techie Chalonzo Amos and Miss Shelley Wolf, global media firm, owner of Toolbox Entertainment. And today is Shelley's birthday, and she gets a well-deserved day off. So, Shelley, if you're listening through the Odyssey app or riding around in the car in the Boston, Cambridge area, happy birthday, Shelley, and I look forward to having you back on next week. And, check out Shelley's website, but also check out the Pod Pro website, Pod Pro Entertainment, and just see what is going on. So again, that shout out. But in this slot right here for this segment, we have a dear friend, retired United States Air Force Sergeant Gene Stico, on the line. Gene, how are you today?
I'm good, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you on, my friend, and it's always a pleasure to have you on whenever we can. And we've been talking a lot about Engineering Infinity, about your book Unconventional over the past few months, and you're a much-desired guest on many platforms, including the Paul Ponders platform. But I guess there's been lots of developments since the last time that we were on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, things are moving fast, and I was thinking about it yesterday after your kind invitation to come back on and update folks on what's going on in the UAP and disclosure world. And it's really still amazing. And to your credit as a journalist and as a podcaster, that you're covering this. We see it gaining a lot of momentum in a lot of the major media forums, CNN, Fox, MSNBC. Everybody's talking to the congressmen and the senators who are working this behind the scenes, and your let's say your awareness to be able to bring this locally is a credit to you, and I hope history recognizes that ultimately for you.
Well, thank you, Gene. I really appreciate that. And in the if we hark back back in the day, BITD, as my daughters would say, people were saying, this isn't a Trekkie type of thing, is it? Blah, blah, blah. And people had to be introduced to this whole thing. So for our growing list of new listeners to Paul Ponders, if you just want to quickly give a brief update as to why you are so profound and so well-versed in this topic of discussion.
Yeah, well, so it was in actually 2019, after my father-in-law passed away, that we discovered a body of work that was something that he worked on. He was from Kazakhstan originally, was active during the period of the USSR, and these documents that my wife Natalia discovered, after he died, detail the reverse engineering of a UFO, as it was popularly known. And by 2019, we had already sort of had a change, I think, in the government and a little bit in the public side of things, where, the old UFO moniker was gone, and they were starting to talk about unidentified anomalous phenomena. We had videos that were being released from the Pentagon, particularly from the U.S. Navy, and sort of what's popularly known as the Tic Tac video, where some Navy pilots were chasing a craft. And since 2017, since my entering this space in 2019, the entire issue has really become much more legitimized, let's say, than it had previously been, and has a lot more acknowledgement, not only throughout the United States government, but other governments around the world as well, are becoming much more transparent about the history and the knowledge that they have of technology that does exist, that they cannot identify the origins of, and that it somewhat defies what is known to be within conventional, even advanced technologies of most countries.
Wow! So that's something that you took that research, that information, and you published the book, the first
Correct.
one.
So I put it out there, translated the works, and shared it, and that's sort of taken on a life of its own, because we were also able, because it's so dense scientifically, and has advanced in physics throughout it, that we began to find the patterns of programs within the United States government that had studied those similar domains, scientific domains. The programs were all associated with what we call the usual suspects: the Air Force, Navy, Defense Intelligence Agency, Air Force propulsion labs, and Air Force research labs. So it's slowly becoming part of piecing these things together, as particularly our legislators in the House and the Senate are collecting more information and bringing more insiders forward. And back in February, we sort of had what was the biggest step that was taken after President Obama had affirmed in an interview that aliens exist, but he didn't know where they were, and that ultimately led to President Trump issuing a directive to the Pentagon and across the administration to begin the process of declassifying any records that had to do with this unidentified anomalous phenomenon, UAP. That's continued to move forward. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna out of Florida just sent a message to Secretary of War Hegseth, a formal letter with a list of 46 particular videos that she wants declassified and released. And so, lots happening behind the scenes. Representative Burchett has talked about quite openly the briefings that he's received, the shocking nature of those briefings, And then, of course, in generalities, that other representatives who receive the briefings sort of come out in shock that there's a lot known about this unknown phenomenon.
Fabulous. So I just want to give a quick plug for your book. Your book is available on Amazon, I believe, and a website.
It's available now through the website. That's engineeringinfinitybook.com. We're in the process of, we've just launched a sort of an appendice to it, let's say, an accompanying volume titled Infinity Disclosed, which we're in Engineering Infinity is the strict translation of the notes with all of the science. Infinity Disclosed, we released, is much more of the narrative around each of the 12 works, and then goes into depths into the research and these connections we made into the U.S. government programs. So it's sort of a treatise on the works themselves.
Interesting. So I kind of sort of jumping around here and all, but I do have to parallel the work that you started to do on this book you just referenced was around the same time that you were writing the book that you recently published, I believe, back in November, and that's called Unconventional.
Yes, so Unconventional, I always say, is the book I always wanted to write. And that I'd worked on long before I entered this space and had to kind of shelf it when this dropped in my lap. But Unconventional is my story of working inside the oil and gas industry with U.S. and global intelligence agencies, and really talks about the geopolitics and the security risks internationally that are involved in oil and gas, and a little bit of the dirt on what that means to getting the gas into your car from the pumps, and what happens behind the scenes that most people are not aware of from a political and transnational security standpoint, and that really speaks to the wars and conflict zones and things like that.
Wow. Well, you're really paying attention to what is going on right now in the Iran area, and what are your observations on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, interesting, again, I think in the grand scale of things, presidents are always handed options on how to deal with these issues. And so I think this kind of military operation was always on the table. And I think that President Trump just made the decision to finally take it because all the other options seemingly haven't worked. You're right. The oil and gas component is a huge undercurrent in those decision-making processes. But I think the timing was right in so much as the not only the U.S. ability, but the market's ability to absorb any realistically short-term disruptions in supply without causing a major crisis. And that's why I think why we're seeing it sort of play out as we are in the time frame that we're seeing it.
Interesting. So Unconventional is also available on Amazon?
Barnes & Noble.
Barnes & Noble, okay.
Yeah, so Barnes & Noble, and then that other, the treatise on Engineering Infinity Disclosed is available Barnes & Noble as well. So we're getting everything switched over there.
Wow. Well, those are two nice plugs for our listeners in Paul Ponder's land. And Gene, you've graciously agreed to be in the next segment and all. So if you don't mind, we're going to take a quick break because, as Arthur Boyle says, it's not time to make the donuts; it's time to pay some bills. So let's hear from our sponsors.
Have you tried Bryanttville Pizza Kitchen? From antipasto to baked ziti, specialty gourmet burgers, over 30 different kinds of pizza, and that's steak and cheese. Come on in and they'll show you why they made a reputation as being the best steak and cheese sub in the area. There's nobody that puts it together like your friends at the Bryanttville Pizza Kitchen. chicken wings and fingers in the famous flavors complement their stir-fry dinners. If subs and wraps aren't enough for your table tonight, expand into Greek and Caesar salads, maybe even a calzone. Anyway, it's all good at the Bryantville Pizza Kitchen. And don't forget, invite them to your next catered event. They'll bring the food. Bryantville Pizza Kitchen. Call them at 781-293-9857.
Are you looking for fencing and outdoor products? Look no further than Northeastern Fence and Supply Corporation of Saugus. When owner Mike Payne's customers have been asked why they chose Northeastern Fence, many said that there were 3 deciding factors: customer respect, excellent customer service, and quality products. I say that you need to add in 70-plus years of a family-run business with truly experienced sales and installation teams. So if you are in the market for fences for your kids, dogs, and ugly neighbors, please call Mike Payne and his crew at 781-233-3324 or email mike@northeasternfence.com.
Paul Ponders continues on 95.9 WATD. Once again, Paul Solano.
We are back. Thanks for listening to Paul Ponders on WATD, presented by Northeastern Fence and Supply Corporation of Saugus, where they have fences for your kids, dogs, and ugly neighbors. The call-in number and text number is 781-837-4900. And if you want to speak to Gene in this next segment, you can do that. And you could also find us in the Odyssey app. That's AUDACY. If you like my daughter Ann in California or Chef Felipe, you're listening on the Odyssey app. And a huge shout out to all those nonprofits out there. If you have any events you want to be promoting, you want to get in touch with me, you want to be on one of my podcasts, please reach out to me at paul@paulponders.com. And as a side note, too, one of my co-sponsors of my Paul Ponders podcast is Project 142, Scott Albertson. You heard Scott a couple of weeks ago, and Scott just does an incredible job promoting so many nonprofits and so many for-profit businesses. So if you go to project142.org, you could, in fact, find out a whole list of upcoming events. And one in particular is something I think happening in Yarmouth, Mass. It's a free rabies clinic on April 11th. So if you want to check out project142.org Facebook page for Scott Albertson, you could find more information and many other links on Scott's website and Facebook page. Now, listeners can go to paulponders.com to find subscription links to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, as well as finding past Paul Ponders on WATD shows. Tomorrow night, I have dear friend, attorney Jordan Shapiro. His podcast is going to be dropping at midnight. And check that out. Jordan Shapiro is really just an incredible attorney. He's an author. He's a publisher. He's a piano player. He does it all. He's a jokester, and he really does a great job. And I think he is colleagues, I believe, with attorney Tom Williams. We've chatted in the hallway about attorney Shapiro. So if you want to listen to a great episode, a very humorous, entertaining episode, please listen to Paul Ponders tomorrow night on YouTube. Side note, on YouTube, my wife Jackie just went through some rotator cuff surgery, and so she's home and she's been watching some TV, and she watches things on YouTube. So I said, "Oh, you could check out my channel. You could type in Paul Ponders." She says, "Oh, I didn't know that." So she typed it up, and she was quite amazed at all the Paul Ponders podcasts. And of course, I had a side note. There was a side note like, "Why don't you have more pictures or more animation?" I said, "We're working on it. So anyways, we'll get to that. But on April 19th, Scott Albertson and John Babowen are going to be coming up to Pearl Street Station Restaurant for a jazz brunch, and that should be a great time. That's 12 to 3. And Bob Hilberg, you've all heard Bob on the show. Bob Hilberg is going to be getting some people together from Medford, looking back at Medford history, and he's been working on the Sarah Bradley Fulton statue, and he's bringing some people over to Pearl Street Station on April 19th, but on April 20th at 10:15, they have the unveiling of the Sarah Bradley Fulton statue. So you want to check that out on the Looking Back at Medford History website. And on April 23rd, Gordon Michaels is returning to Pearl Street Station Restaurant with a birthday celebration. And the name of the show is I'm 62, This Is What I Do, Things I Love to Sing. And that's with Gordon Michaels and Michael Larson on piano. And the early bird price tickets deadline is fast approaching. So please log into GordonMichaels.com and purchase those tickets for Pearl Street Station Restaurant on April 23rd. We have a bowling tournament coming up in April in a couple of weeks, next week, as a matter of fact, with the National Italian American Sports Hall of Fame. That's 5 to 8 at the Town Line Luxury Lanes. And then, of course, we have the Bruins alumni and Boston Strong All-Stars facing off on April 18th at the Larson Rinka-Ruzioni Center in Winthrop. And I won't be here that day. Dave Boyle is going to be filling in for me. He has many wonderful guests lined up, as he always does, and looking forward to seeing friends from the Bruins organization and the Boston Strong All-Stars. Now, usually at this point of the program, we have a segment of health and wellness survival tips with Ms. Sharon Fillier. Sharon got a last-minute singing gig yesterday, and she's singing today. And just a quick shout-out for checking out Sharon's YouTube channel. Look for the Fillier Fall Prevention Method on her YouTube channel and check that out. So Sharon should be back next week. But with us, graciously holding on the line, Mr. Gene Stico. Gene, thanks for holding.
My pleasure.
Awesome, my friend. So, Gene, we went over those two books that you've published, and you've done an awesome job, and you're one of the most interesting people I know, and I love discussing stuff about space exploration, UAPs, and all. But obviously in the news these days is the Artemis mission and all. So if you just want to maybe touch upon that and what's happening there.
Yeah, so Artemis mission, it's the beginning of the next generation of U.S. moon exploration. As many people are aware, and others are a little bit confused by, I think, in all the press. This mission is not landing, right? They are orbiting. They are testing the life support systems for the next phase, which will lead to putting astronauts back on the moon, and eventually construction of a moon base. So the crew is gone for about 10 days as they slingshot their way around the moon. We'll see what information they come back with to our earlier discussion on UAP phenomenon and all the rest. Very interesting, again, to hear a couple of the astronauts specifically address that and specifically address the questions of extraterrestrial life, beyond the Earth. So again, in all components across government, we're hearing this messaging and seeing the signals come out about this issue.
Well, maybe someone will phone home, right?
Exactly.
Indeed. Now, I think you touched upon earlier about the U.S. senators and maybe Vice President Vance discussing some stuff. If you just want to touch upon that again, please.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's a very important component here. That again, people who don't regularly follow the issue or are questioning, its legitimacy and or its importance in the grand scale of things, to recognize, this is the first point in history where we not only have sitting members of Congress making very declaratory statements, factual statements about the existence of the technology, the existence of other life forms, but it's actually in the executive branch now. DNI Gabbard has talked about it. Vice President Vance has, expressed his deep interest in wanting to track it down and get some answers, and is working on that. And as I said, the president himself setting the stage for the administration and the agencies to begin sharing more documentation. And, so it's, again, interesting in that fact that there's no longer just a blanket denial. There's no longer ridicule of people that are coming forward as witnesses, people who are sharing even pieces of what they have assessed or claimed to be recovered craft that are undergoing scientific examination. I just got a message from somebody the other day with probably about 10 photos of materials that he asked if I knew somebody, that could have a look. And there's actually a advanced propulsion laboratory out in New Jersey that I've developed a relationship with who look at these things regularly. They look at them on behalf of universities, on behalf of government agencies. So it's I think it's for anybody seeking to get comfortable with the idea of legitimacy. Again, we can look right to our legislators, our lawmakers, our leaders, and we can look at them across party lines, because this is definitely bipartisan.
Exactly. I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you anticipate any time frame for something to break?
So there's always rumors happening. The videos that Representative Luna has asked for, she set an April 14th deadline for the War Department. So perhaps within 10 days or so, we will start seeing some things come out from that. And there are a number of rumors that key figures say are corroborated, that potentially in May the president may make a specific address.
Gotcha. Now, I know in the previous segment, I think you touched upon it, but if you want to elaborate on a new documentary coming out.
Yes. So I mentioned Infinity Disclosed. So we are working with a studio that took an interest in the body of works and what they mean for disclosure and for the history of the UAP phenomenon, and have put together a documentary that we just completed production on. It's actually in post-production now, and it's going to feature a friend of yours and mine. I'm pretty sure you're friends with Arthur Wahlberg.
Without a doubt. Great guy. Yeah.
So, super guy. When I spoke with him about it, he had an interest. I think like many people, he always wondered, and if there's something to it, he'd love to, be alive to see it. So I invited him to kind of come along on this journey with us over the last few months, and it brought him to a lot of things and introduced him to a lot of people. And he's a Dorchester kid, right? He's a no nonsense. He's a builder, a contractor, a craftsman. He knows what plans look like. He knows what makes sense. He's got common sense. And so, being from the Boston area, with some of this even having connections to Boston area organizations. We've talked before about Harvard Observatory and such. I was like, Arthur's a great fit. He's no nonsense, every man who can perhaps help put this into perspective for the larger public as more things come forward.
Without a doubt, and I find him to be so creative and so knowledgeable, and he really has a great head on his shoulders. And I've seen you collaborating at various coffee shops, and I believe you even came to Pearl Street Station Restaurant once for a meeting and all. Yep. And it's so nice to see that this Infinity Disclosed is going to be coming out in documentary soon. And if I may, I have a pre-screening. It says, A Hidden Blueprint, A Daughter's Discovery, Answers Washington, D.C., Never Wanted Found.
That is it.
Wow.
3 lines, never spoke more truth.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt, and all those people who are just coming out with all this stuff, and you're saying, "I told you so." Now, it's one of those things that I really encourage our listeners in Paul Ponder's Land to just keep on following the travels and see where this goes. And I'm expecting really, really big things, and so many things have evolved since you first came forth with the book, and it's been absolutely wonderful. And I think you've even started a website that's pretty much New England focused.
Yeah, so interestingly, New England has a rich history of this phenomenon. In fact, the first reported UAP phenomenon happened in the Boston area back in the 1600s. And there's historical journals, and then it extends up into New Hampshire and Exeter and the rest. So rich history, not discussed very often. And a lot of content creators, a couple of top content creators, Ty Roberts with Total Disclosure Podcast, Martin Willis, who's been in this field for 30 years, does one called Podcast UFO. So essentially, I created a platform called Wicked Alien to give it a little Boston flavor, and it's really just a outlet where people in the New England area can turn to. We're going to be telling a lot of the New England stories, but also using the relationships that I've developed, through my time in this, to bring in some of these national figures in the space and get their take on the local perspective, and just to again help people. Provide resources through various different types of podcasters who all have different views and expertise into the multitude of subtopics that come into this. So we're hoping it's sort of a one-stop people to go to and begin educating themselves and becoming familiar with what's going on. And that's all at wickedalien.com.
Awesome. And that's also available on the YouTube channel, I believe, if I'm
Correct.
not mistaken. That's awesome. That's awesome. And lastly, as we wind down, if you want to give a plug for the symposium, the conference coming up in October.
Correct. Thank you. Yeah, it'll be our second symposium. Again, Wicked Alien is sponsoring it. It's in conjunction with a Mutual UFO Network investigator, Massachusetts, where we bring in the guests, but we also bring in a live audience, and we're going to do that at Pearl Street Station. We did that last year. Went very well, so we hope to extend that. And that's all coordinated through the Wicked Alien Meetup group. For anyone who's familiar with the app Meetup, you can find it online, meetup.com. We have this Wicked Alien group. We have some folks, again, from all over New England who showed up not only to the last symposium, but have joined the group since. So, again, it's just a way to connect with others and become better educated.
That is awesome, awesome, awesome. So lastly, Gene, how do our listeners in Paul Ponder's Land reach you to ask you any questions?
The easiest way is through the main website, engineeringinfinitybook.com. Everything is linked out from there, and that's probably the best starting place to find more information, to reach out to me, find the books and everything, engineeringinfinitybook.com.
Awesome. Well, Gene, I want to thank you for being on these segments, and it's always a pleasure, my friend, and I want to thank you again for your service, and best to Nat and AJ, and you have a great Easter, okay, my friend?
Thank you. You too. I appreciate it, Paul.
Be well. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. And again, that was Gene Stico, United States Air Force, retired Staff Sergeant, and now let's hear from our sponsors.
Have you tried Brianville Pizza Kitchen? From antipasto to baked ziti, specialty gourmet burgers, over 30 different kinds of pizza, and that's steak and cheese. Come on in and they'll show you why they made a reputation as being the best steak and cheese sub in the area. There's nobody that puts it together like your friends at the Brianville Pizza Kitchen. Chicken wings and fingers and the famous flavors complement their stir-fry dinners. If subs and wraps aren't enough for your table tonight, expand into Greek and Caesar salads, maybe even a calzone. Anyway, it's all good at the Bryantville Pizza Kitchen. And don't forget, invite them to your next catered event. They'll bring the food. Bryantville Pizza Kitchen. Call them at 781-293-9857.
Are you looking for fencing and outdoor products? Look no further than Northeastern Fence and Supply Corporation of Saugus. When owner Mike Payne's customers have been asked why they chose Northeastern Fence, many said that there were 3 deciding factors: customer respect, excellent customer service, and quality products. I say that you need to add in 70-plus years of a family-run business with truly experienced sales and installation teams. So if you are in the market for fences for your kids, dogs, and ugly neighbors, please call Mike Payne and his crew at 781-233-3324 or email mike@northeasternfence.com.
Paul Ponders continues on 95.9 WATD. Once again, Paul Solano.
We are back, and thanks for listening to Paul Ponders on WATD. The call-in number is 781-837-4900. At this point of the program, we have the financial wing of Olympic Proportions, sponsored by PS and All Marketing Group and Riverworks Credit Union, NMLS number 410564, with Mr. Paul Crowley of Riverworks Credit Union, and Olympian and former Boston Bruins winger Dave Jensen, Senior Loan Officer. And on the line, we have Dave Jensen. How are you, my friend? Dave, are you there?
Yes.
There
Can you
we
hear me,
go.
Paul?
Yes, I can. Indeed. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Living the dream today. It's great being in studio.
Day.
Absolutely.
I wish I had your life. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You know, life is too short. It really is. And we were thinking of talking about interest rates, about buying homes, this being the season and all. But let's have some good hockey talk. The Olympics.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we haven't chatted about the Olympics. We had you on about a month or so ago, or actually it was right before the Olympics and all, but pretty good result, eh?
Wasn't that unbelievable?
Yep, you got to love it.
Yeah, it was so exciting to watch. And that game, that Canada game, the final, gold medal game was one of the best I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely. It really, really was. And it's just so nice. The pride, is first gold medal since 1980. Yeah, just incredible.
Unbelievable. Yeah, totally unbelievable. And it was, how about the goalie, Paul, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
He stood in his head, huh?
Absolutely. Swayman got the gold medal, but he didn't play a whole lot, but it's okay. He had the hot goalie in there, right?
Yeah, and that's what you got to go with, right? Whether it's playoffs or the Olympics. It kind of brought back some memories, too. If you remember that Russian game where Jim Craig stood in his head, right, and kept him in it until the final period. And just seeing, you could see the swing, right, after that 5-on-3 penalty in the second period. But, God, that was just, I lived for games like that.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable. Brought
back many memories for you back in 1984 when you were skating in the Olympics, huh?
Yeah, it really did. But, it was a different world back then, Paul. It was certainly it was great hockey, right? But when you have the NHL, it was more like the Canada Cup, which I was fortunate enough to play in '84 as well in the summer, where you had the top, 6 teams. I think it was Canada, U.S., Russia, Czech, and obviously Russia's out of it right now, which is kind of a bummer because they would field a team that would challenge for the gold medal as well. But Sweden and Finland, those were the powerhouses 40-plus years ago. And, you had Gretzky and, Lemieux, all these guys, Steve Eisman as their centers, that I think 18 Hall of Famers, on their team. And but the U.S., we feel a pretty good team, too. We had about 10 or 12 guys that became Hall of Famers. But it's just it's next level elite hockey, if you know what I mean, as opposed to, the amateur. And I don't know what I like better because the amateur is fun to watch as well, back in those days.
Without a doubt, absolutely. The junior championships were on thereafter. Yeah, just
that's
incredible.
Even better. That's taken a step from when I played back when I was a junior in the early '80s. That has become sort of an international phenomenon when it's on TV now. Back in the day, it was just you read the papers how the teams were doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the way they broadcast it now, I love watching junior World Championships. It's absolutely phenomenal hockey.
Absolutely.
And you see, those kids coming up and they're future stars and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Olympics, regardless of whether they're pros or whatever, it's just such an exciting time.
Without a
really
doubt.
Is.
But we also have to give kudos to the ladies. The ladies, they struck gold.
Phenomenal. Yeah, phenomenal. And I love the women's hockey. I've mentioned it before. I was fortunate enough to be the assistant coach on the initial, it was called the NWHL, the National Women's Hockey League, back in, I believe it was 2015, and Bobby J was the head coach, and he was the assistant coach on the 2014, Women's Olympic team. And we had Hillary Knight and Brianna Decker and Bobby Carpenter's daughter, Alex Carpenter, and like 7 or 8 Olympians. It was just such great hockey. We called the Boston Pride back then. And the first year we used to, our home games were out of Harvard there, the Bright Center,
right,
which was cool. And then we were at the Warriors Center the second year. And then things changed where it became a different league, and now it's the Women's Professional Hockey League. But I got to tell you, I was so shocked back then. I was a little ignorant back in 2015 about how fast and how good these girls were until you get in the ice with them. And, just see how tenacious they are. Best hockey I ever saw. I look for those games, if not, more so than the men's games. It was unbelievable hockey, and I was rooting for them the whole time. Coached a few of them.
Right, absolutely. And the Fleet are doing really well, I believe.
Yeah. Which is the Boston team now. It used to, like I said, it used to be the Boston Pride prior to the Women's Professional Hockey League. But now, what's great is, the women weren't compensated the way they deserved to be compensated, 10 plus years ago. And now they actually, they're acknowledging that, and they put together a really good collective bargaining agreement, and they deserve every penny they get and then some. Without a doubt.
But it's just great for future generations, if you will.
Yeah, 100%. So as you know, hockey's my sport, and I love it. I love all sports, but it's just it was such an exciting time, and now I'm looking forward to the playoffs and the Bruins.
Absolutely. And what are you looking at there? Are we going to be seated pretty well? Are we going to make it?
The way we're playing, throughout the last game, and those happen, right? The way we're running to playoffs, and it seems like they're taking another step. You just never know. That's what I love about the NHL as opposed to maybe some other sports. And I'm not a basketball expert, but any team like a 7 seed or an 8 seed, they can win. LA did it, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And if you got a hot goalie like Swayman's playing right now, and your team's playing like the way the Bruins are, like nobody's out of it. Anybody can win the cup.
Right.
That's what I love about hockey.
Oh, exactly. Once you drop that puck, you got to play the game, and you just got to make it happen.
And it's such a grind, Paul. It's definitely the toughest championship trophy to win. When you got to go through 4 series and just the toll it takes to travel, the physical nature of the sport. You're not playing once a week. You're playing for freaking 6 weeks of just intense hockey, hockey and physical endurance. So that's what I like about the Bruins. They have a really balanced team. They're strong. They're physical. And that's a team you got to watch out for in the playoffs, because they could, if they stay healthy, they could make a run for it. And people wouldn't expect that just based on, you see, some of the high-powered Colorado teams and whatnot. But in a 7-game series, they could beat anybody, in my opinion.
Without a doubt. It's just a matter of, it's a clean slate once the playoffs start, and, it's really about momentum. And
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, you still have Hockey Care for Kids. Are you still involved with that, with the bullying program?
Yeah. So, and you probably know, do you know Dave McCarthy at all?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, Dave. So Dave started that with a couple other gentlemen too, and And, that was, and we used to do this through my hockey company that I had way back when. It was on and off ice camps and clinics and all that stuff. And we always, I was really passionate about the anti-bullying programs that we used to do in the inner city programs. So we do still do some of that stuff. The COVID kind of put it sort of on the back burner, and then I, got a real job, so to speak. So I don't have the same time that I used to have when it was just all hockey back 5 years ago. But with the Bruins alumni, all their initiatives and charitable events go towards these programs. So being a part of that allows me to continue,
That is awesome. That's awesome. And just a quick, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, I believe the head coach of the U.S. hockey team was Coach Sullivan, who's from Marshfield, I believe, or from the South Shore?
Yeah, Sully. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know Sully. I used to train with him. Actually, you know what? We were talking to Arthur Boyle, right?
Oh, with Dave Boyle.
With Sully. About Mike Boyle, right?
Yes.
Dave Boyle? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. So I used to train with Sully back in the BU days with Mike Boyle back in the mid-'80s, and just a great guy. And as you know, he's Charlie McAvoy's father-in-law, too. So nice
I heard
story
that,
there.
yeah. I know, yeah. Really. It's a good one there.
He's a great coach. He was always, you could tell, certain guys you can tell who would be great coaches, and you could tell when he was in college, for crying out loud,
Right.
Just how mature and how, studious he was towards the game, his work ethic, everything. And I always root for Sully, no matter where he's coaching.
Absolutely.
I'm hoping. I mean, the Rangers, they're kind of having a tough time, but has nothing to do with coaching, I can tell you that.
Right, exactly. It's just playing in the Broadway spotlight, I guess, right?
100%. And then, it's different pieces and, chemistry and, there can be some personality issues, but Sully's track record has proven that's one of the best coaches, in my opinion, ever,
That is awesome. Well, I love this hockey chat, but you might as well give a plug for your work at Riverworks Credit Union, my friend.
Yeah. I'm looking at my computer screen right now, qualifying people, Paul. So
I love it.
So my email address is D as in David, Jensen, Jensen, at rwcu.com. djensen@rwcu.com.
That is awesome, my friend. Well, I want to wish you and the family a happy Easter, and we will catch up with you soon, my friend, okay?
You as well, Paul. Good talking to you.
Great chatting with you. Go USA and go Bruins.
You got it.
You got it, my friend. Talk to you later. Okay. Bye-bye now. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Well, I want our listeners to stay tuned to WATD in the Memories with Ron Dwyer. Ron, you are the grand poobah of musical memories. Listeners can go to paulponders.com to find subscription links. Thanks again to Tim, Arthur, Gene, Dave, and our advertisers. But really, thank you, listeners in WATD World and Beyond. Here's to a continued great season number 2 and beyond. Keep on Paul Pondering. #Indeed.